Chances are that you probably have some sort of ego in your heart, or you probably know someone who also has ego and you're tired of dealing with that. And I'll, in this video, literally talk about the effects on ego in the personal life and how it can affect your productivity and how it can as well affect your happiness in many different ways, and also give you a proper solution on how to overcome the preliminary ego in your heart. Let's get started. What is ego? That's very important. Ego is some sort of an unhealthy belief of your own importance. What sort of importance? That you just somewhat self-cater to yourself. You feel like everything revolves around you. That's the basic thing, right? And the thing is, ego is also an inner fear of failure. Ego is not always being arrogant, but also more of not really knowing yourself, because you want to pressurize one thing over the reality which exists. That is ego. And I'll talk about how ego can be very different. Two types of ego. You need to work to build confidence versus ego is something that is literally stolen. You don't work for it. To have confidence, you need to build confidence. It doesn't happen, oh, you feel like you're confident. It doesn't happen like that. And then Holiday, the writer of the book Ego is the Enemy, literally says that ego is the enemy to meaningful success. Now let's dive deeper into more of the reasons and how we can recognize ego as the double edge of self-perception. As said, ego is the self-absorbed aspect of identity that creates superiority and validation in your heart. That identity is ideally the problem of not knowing yourself properly. And that's why every video I'll try to say, people, know yourself, because knowing yourself is a huge part of a journey. And then ego is a self-centered or a self-experience related sort of bias and defense mechanisms, because you have grown up in a very different way, you have mixed with very different people and have very different experiences. Those experiences may lead you to having a biased sort of viewpoint on yourself, and you have some sort of defense mechanisms that you have built it up throughout the life, and you just do things like egoistic persons do things to prove, not to deserve. You just do things to show someone, like, it's just this sort of self-centered way, in a way where you think about other people. Ego, ideally, is two main types, as I was talking about: overconfident one and the self-doubting one. Let's talk about the overconfident one first. They might seem very distinct, but they have all a very similar point. Overconfident one have an illusion of superiority affecting the learning. They think that, oh my god, these things, the small things, I don't need to learn. They may learn, like, academic things, but like other things, they're like, oh my god, I know this and I'm comfortable with this. And that literally alters meaningful productivity. It makes impulsive and wrong decisions. Like, literally, they're more accustomed to not creating decisions based on real research or knowledge that should or does make sense. And that causes calamity, because in a research, literally, like, it says that high recklessness and difficulty in critical tasks, like people with greater ego and resistance to learning, they make literally wrong decisions and find it harder to do difficult and more work, like hard-working tasks, because their smartness is not challenged, but their ability of working hard is challenged. And that's something that's needed in daily to daily, and rather in the entire life, except for some parts. And that is exactly where they struggle at. And then what happens is that they even shut down inclusive ideas. If they're at a very big managerial position, they don't listen to people's ideas who are below him in terms of position. Then what happens? Good ideas just gets lost away, and that is a very big problem in companies as well. And this all happens just to a self-biased view. That goes for the overconfident one. And what about the self-doubting ego one? See, studies show that lower achievement and more inner conflict are related with those. Studies show that lower achievement and more inner conflict are with people who have more self-doubts. Now, ego, self-doubt, like excessive self-doubt, is a resistive mechanism towards accepting the fact that he or she is capable of something. They're always diminishing their own value and worth, which makes them also resistive to learning and inclusivity. What this creates is an illusion of, they might think, oh, I'm being right, but actually they have an ego towards learning and really accepting the reality, because they also have a biased point of view in their life. So ego is literally, this is literally ego in disguise. And like, they're literally paralyzed by what others will think. Isn't that an ego? Being self-centered in a way where you think of what people will feel like or think like, and you need to prove to people. It's the same thing. Then again, creates resistivity, and that is literally the self-centric thing about you. And then you're literally not exploring or missing out opportunities, plus heightened, plus hesitant on decisions. When you're hesitant on decisions, you're not able to learn from mistakes, because you might have bad decisions, and that's totally correct and perfect, but you need to realize in order to learn from bad decisions. And bad decisions are known when you make a mistake, but these people are so resistive towards mistake, and they feel like a mistake defines their life and defines how other people have a perspective on them. This perspective change literally creates a fluctuation in their mind of how maybe I shouldn't do this, maybe I shouldn't do that. And that is exactly ego in disguise, which prevents you from practicing meaningful creativity and exactly achieving the sort of productivity that someone wants in life. It literally shows a fragile form of self-worth. And then it literally shows like a fragile form of self-worth, just directed by fear. The other one is directed by the other one is directed by self-efficacy and overconfidence, and this one is directed by fear. And then you have your hindered productivity. In a book called The Mindset by Carol S. Dweck, she tells that people with a fixed mindset are more resistive to learning. These are exactly the fixed mindset individuals. Both of the people who are overconfident and who have self-doubts are the fixed mindset individuals that are resistant to learning. And that exactly creates a problem here. Now, let's talk about the direct interaction of ego and productivity. Clinical psychologist Brian Wendt says that overactive self-focus leads to a spiral of negative emotions. I'll say one story, right, guys? It's Ramadan right now, and I'm trying to reflect and fast and trying to be a little bit more spiritual. However, I was thinking a lot about me in a different way. And you know what was happening exactly? It was some sort of a spiral of negative emotions that was building inside me. And that was making me overwhelming, and it also says in the research, and hence impacting my productivity. That is also sadder. Ideally, just reflecting what you could or what you couldn't do, because you start getting out of zone. You think of, oh, what happened and what happened. And when you start to get out of zone, you're just not in the proximal space of practicing happiness incorporated productivity and creativity in your life. Why? Because I think productivity is not about working, guys. If you're thinking productivity is about working, then maybe this video is wrong. Productivity is about having a heart which is happy with whatever you're doing, and you are pursuing the things in your life without a defined set of endpoint, and you are enjoying the journey. You're just a traveler throughout the journey, and the best traveler is the one who wanders and sees things, not just focus on the final destination. If that's something that you believe in, then good. That is productivity, and that is often impacted by not really creating the sustainable systems in our mindset. And then what happens is that ego features your glory, makes you worry, superiority, and then it literally stops from entering the deep stage of focus when you are trying to be in the zone. Deep work, just read this book, Deep Work by Cal Newport. I still haven't, but like some of the principles are really good here. It's just that you need to understand the fact that in order for you to know about yourself, see, I was talking about the fact that self-identity is a problem. You don't even realize who are you, because you're not really having a deep focus session for your own self, or maybe working towards something, a specific thing that is related to your personality. When you are working, the working style tells a lot about you. The thinking style throughout that working process tells a lot about you. And the things that you realize throughout the working process also tells a lot about you. Now, here's the thing. Do you even get the feeling to be in the zone? No, you're just too busy. I mean, I'm not busy. I mean, I'm busy as well. Everyone is busy. And that's the exact caveat. You just need to allow yourself autonomous time to be able to think, reflect, work, and see what functions you, what makes you, you. And that is exactly what we were lacking. And that is exactly what builds ego and like a blind spot towards what you really are and what you think you are. Now, productivity is just like not an ending game. Day one, the egoistic person tries to learn something, and the day two, they feel like they know everything, and that's all they need to know. Boom. That's what an egoistic behavior is. Maybe exaggerated, but that's what it is. But they don't realize is that the path is still left, still way too big. It's just a blind spot. This is their blind spot. I believe that proper understanding of self-worth and capability, and then the proper amount of your own confidence, the intersection of it, exactly is the solution to make yourself free from egoistic behaviors and ideally ego. And that will lead you to intrinsically achieving perpetual of happiness. Exactly. And that's what the solution is. But creativity and etc. really is also very much connected. You make time to think. I was talking about that. And then you are not resistant to learning. This creates never mind Mahir, delete that past part. You do not make time to think. I was saying, you have a resistance to learning. That creates a highly resistance to creative thinking, because your resistance to learning, and learning is for the purpose of gathering those sources and resources in your brain, because those resources connect and mix and match up to form new ideas. And that you really don't have the corporate knowledge to be able to be creative. And then you need to foster / channel that creativity, and that creativity, never mind. And then what happens is that you have an imbalanced form of unsatisfaction inside your heart, where you don't feel like you're enough. And that leads you to more ego. Ego-induced fear shrinks our mental bandwidth, in short, because it overvalues comfort and certainty. We need to be uncertain in life, and we need to get out of our comfort zones. And that is exactly the point of getting out of ego. Also, do you know, guys, that ego also sets like a very big stage for perfectionism, which ideally leads to like unbreakable loops of depth in productivity and happiness. Because when you're trying to be perfect and you don't achieve something, you try to pay back the debt by trying to be more productive or just do more things, and then you're still not able to do that, and then this cycle creates and goes on, and that happens to many of our lives. And that is exactly what ego may impact. It doesn't mean that someone, if it's in the loop, they're egoistic, but like an egoistic person may have this problem as well. Finally, how do we tackle with ego? I did tell a lot of things how we should tackle with ego, but like here's my simplified step. Meet your ego. First of all, learn that you have ego. That is the first step towards acceptance. Then be a student, not a master. Try to see things, try to reflect, try to engulf. Just realizing is the biggest step, okay? And then separate confidence from ego. You mix up confidence from ego. Write out things what makes you confident, and write out things what makes you egoistic, and write out the similarities between them and the differences between them. Just do that. In just 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you will start to have some sort of change that is very much impactful for your entire life. Now, resist urges of doing something for someone. Rather, focus on purpose, not applause. That's something very important as well. And then reflect. Then practice gratitude. If you can do these things in a 1 week, you are probably free from an egoistic behavior, and it will take more and more time to really get that feeling. And it's a process, and I believe in process, in pursuit. That takes long, short, medium times. Doesn't matter. You took the step, that is the matter. See you guys in the next video, and that is exactly how ego can impact you and your life and your productivity.